Welcome back. You're watching Newsx. Prime Minister Modi has landed in Washington, D.C. for the highly anticipated meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump. The meeting, which will be the first between both the leaders since the inauguration, is expected to set the agenda for India-U.S. relationship for at least the next 4 years. Prime Minister Modi will also meet Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy and Mike Waltz. So the big question is, what is it that makes this visit important for India? It obviously comes at the backdrop of Donald Trump's push to deport 20,000 illegal immigrants back to India. While India has supported Trump's stance, humane return of the deportees is also on the agenda. Another important issue is trade after Trump imposed tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. Donald Trump has also expressed his desire to sell defense products to India, which will be crucial for India's defense modernization push. Let's not forget that this also comes as Trump administration is cracking down on US aid and also on George Soros and his network. Before this visit, the Prime Minister has met with Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and US Vice President J.D. Vance and discussed investments in nuclear energy and also artificial intelligence. So what can India expect from the Modi-Trump meeting, and what fresh synergy will we witness between the two leaders will be important to see next as we build up to the summit. We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the program at this point in time is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former diplomat. Major General Rajan Kochar, defense expert, also joins us on the show. Mr. Surinder Singh Lali, international affairs expert, with us on the show as well. Mr. Raja Muneeb, foreign affairs expert, also joins us on the show for this important conversation. Ambassador Sikri, I'll begin with you, ma'am. Well, it was obviously a little offensive the way Indians were treated while being deported back from the United States. India has agreed that, if there are illegal Indians in the United States, we will take them back. That's the decent thing to do. That's the acceptable diplomatic channel and response that any decent country would have. But the fact of the matter is that there is a hot and cold wind blowing towards and away from this particular bilateral relationship. What, according to you, should India focus on at this point in time? Because you have to prioritize why the Prime Minister calls Donald Trump as one of his closest friends.
Well, I think that I agree that this is a very important visit, and I think the respect that the US President has shown to our Prime Minister, because he's one of the earliest heads of government, heads of state that are being invited to the US, to the White House. So far as we know, only Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and the Prime Minister of Japan and King Abdullah of Jordan, only these three leaders have been, and none of them have received a dinner. None of them have had a dinner hosted in their honor by President Trump. But our Prime Minister is going to have a dinner hosted for him by President Trump tonight, on the 13th night in Washington, D.C. So this is an indication of the great respect that President Trump has for our Prime Minister. We all remember the huge Howdy Modi event in Texas in 2019, where there were 50,000 people in that stadium cheering Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. President Trump flew all the way from Washington, D.C. to be there in that stadium. And we remember in 2020 in Ahmedabad, in the Modi Stadium, 120,000 people. So I think the people's basis, the people-to-people basis of the relationship is very strong. And I think it's growing. You're absolutely right about the deportation of the illegal Indians, and those visuals were very disturbing and very unfortunate. I understand, according to the statement made in Parliament by External Affairs Minister and other statements, that this methodology of sending back illegal immigrants has been there since 2012, and of course our government has taken it up. We are very disturbed by it, and I'm sure in future the only answer is to bring the verified illegal immigrants who are verified as Indian citizens and have been declared illegal immigrants by the American government, to bring them back on Indian planes, whether commercial or military, but that is the only way. I was in another discussion, and the American representatives there were saying that one of the reasons for this was that there has every apprehension that these people who are being deported are extremely disturbed, and there could be a security threat to the crew and the pilot of the plane, and that's why. But of course, I agree with you. The visuals are very unfortunate. No such deportation should ever be done or ever be accepted, because we were willingly receiving back our own citizens, and I'm sure that this issue will be discussed at some level during the visit, and in all future instances, I do feel sure that this will not be repeated. But there are so many other issues on which the India-US relationship shows every signs of strengthening and growing from strength to strength. I do agree that right now the focus is a lot on the issues which President Trump has been taking up with all governments, which is tariffs and, of course, illegal immigration and, of course, trade as well. So these issues will certainly be taken up and discussed also. The trade issue, the feeling that India should be importing more from the US because the trade is in India's favor, and the tariffs issue, because President Trump has clearly said that he considers India as a tariff king and that our tariffs are very high. But we do know that in the most recent budget presented in Parliament just a few days ago, we have made a conscious effort to reduce tariffs, and these have come down in many cases fairly substantially. But there's always more to be done, and I'm sure that this will happen as well. But look at the defense sector. I think if we look at the defense sector, we will see that there's an enormous growth possibility in this, and we know that our Defense Minister, Shri Rajnath Singh ji, has already had a discussion with the Secretary of Defense in America, with Secretary Hegseth in America. So this shows that we are not wasted any time in getting the relationship off the ground in the defense sector, and whether it is going to be, the defense equipment, the drones, the aircraft, the F-35s that are also bidding for new intakes in the Indian Air Force, the fighter jets, and so many other issues that I'm quite sure will receive a very major discussion. And we also know that President Trump attaches the greatest importance to Quad. And already, just on the very first day that Secretary of State Marco Rubio was sworn in, there was a foreign ministers level meeting of Quad in Washington, D.C., where, of course, our External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, was there. And that went well. It's a preparation building up for the next Quad summit, which is going to be held in India. And that's very important for India. And I'm sure that this will be discussed at the highest level between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, both in terms of the actual Quad meeting, but also the outcomes. What will it be doing? What are the future directions of Quad? Are we going to look more at maritime security? Are we going to look more at trade? What is it that are the future directions of Quad? I think President Trump is going to be the key person who will be giving his views on that. And India is very keen on its participation in Quad and in strengthening Quad on issues like maritime security. And this is going to be very valuable. We also know on issues like civil nuclear cooperation. Already we've seen in Paris, Prime Minister Modi had a meeting with the Vice President of the USA, J.D. Vance, and that went well, and we're going to see a lot of outcomes of the issues discussed there. Artificial intelligence cooperation between India and the USA on that. We do know that USA and UK did not sign on to the Artificial AI Summit document, the GPAI, the GP Global Partnership for Artificial Intelligence. They have their own reservations because they want less control and they want, more freedom for individual companies to operate. But we also know that the world, including America, is worried about DeepSeek, about the Chinese AI. There's a lot of issues of plagiarism. There are a lot of issues of technology being stolen on that. So, it shows that we are really attaching the highest importance. I do think this is going to be very important. Whether it is Chabahar, we will, talk to the American government and convince them of the importance of Chabahar for connectivity with Afghanistan and Central Asia, and also for IMEC, which, we do know in Paris, IMEC received a special presentation for President Macron.
Right, ma'am.
So
Absolutely, ma'am. Let me also rope in Mr. Raja Munib, Foreign Affairs expert, into this conversation. Mr. Munib, thank you for speaking with us. I hope you can hear me. Mr. Munib?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, Donald Trump, very popular for his style of dealing with problems in a unique and a solution-oriented way. The art of the deal is something that he takes pride in, but the fact of the matter is that India has been able to get its way with the Americans for the past few years. Now there is a favorable wind, if we can call it, which is blowing in our favor. Will the Prime Minister be able to extract more than he could from Donald Trump's predecessor? Or do you think that nationalism and jingoism that Donald Trump has been thumping about very loudly is going to get into the way of what India expects from the Americans, especially, the rightful treatment of these illegal deportees?
Yeah, look, what we are seeing, what we have noticed till now is that, the way the Prime Minister of India is, in US right now and holding key meetings with Trump administration officials, including he has met Tulsi Gabbard. He's meeting Elon Musk, he's meeting Vivek Ramaswamy, who right now is not a part of Trump dispensation, but then nevertheless an important member of Trump party. I think PM Modi would be very much looking at, resuming his relationship with Donald Trump where he left it off. And that is, if you remember that Texas rally which President Donald Trump in his first term had, where more than 50,000 Indians, NRIs were participant of. But saying that, we have run into rough weather with US in the previous Biden administration regime, and that was critical for our defense infrastructure, wherein we have seen delays in engines, Tejas engines being delayed again and again. So I think that is an issue which would be sorted out in this meeting. We'll be looking at enhanced defense cooperation. We'll be looking at enhanced cooperation in maritime security. We will also be looking at cooperation in regional cooperation, whether it comes to Pakistan, Bangladesh, or even Chabar, with respect to dealings with Afghanistan. And of course, IMEC. I think the relationship between US and India is, bound to grow stronger, in my sense, rather than it being overtaken by the jingoism which we have seen on the issue of illegal immigrants. Look, the issue of illegal immigrants, if you look at it, yes, it made a very bad optics. But India would like to see more visas for its working class people going and working in US, and I think that is something Donald Trump is not adverse to, of H-1B visas or people working with the right skill set going to US and working. For illegal immigrants, I don't think is an issue between India and US. The problem was with illegal immigrants, and rightly so, they were deported back. The optics didn't look good, but at the end of the day, that is how any country would deal with illegal immigrants. When it comes to illegal immigration, not many countries are very favorable to deal with them in a much lenient manner. But apart from immigration, I think the key discussions are going to be on the defense, are going to be on the technology. It's going to be on the regional cooperation. We'll have to see how far Quad is going to go. Will it again be on the front foot? Will they be again building it up as a robust model against, taking the Chinese hegemony in the region? But definitely there is scope on nuclear, nuclear energy cooperation. There is definite scope on transfer of technologies when it comes to defense, procurement of defense equipments. There is definitely a regional, and most important is going to be the regional, sort of cooperation when it comes to what we have seen, and which is quite evident now what happened in Bangladesh with the previous US regime being a part of it, with the USAID now being suspended, because now Trump really wants to get rid of, that kind of an ecosystem. And he's looking to build a fresh, perspective of US policy, and India is going to be at the forefront of that policy.
Absolutely. Mr. Lali, the Prime Minister is obviously very excited about this trip. Optics have always revealed that when these leaders get together, there is bonhomie, there is friendship, there is excitement. They pretend like they behave like they're yaron ke yaar. And the fact of the matter is that this yari should also result in gains for India. Obviously, the one gain that I see is that the current US government is very vividly, very ferociously against the concept of people like George Soros, or targeting of Indian interests, like has been done by platforms like Hindenburg, and that is something that the Prime Minister definitely will be elated about.
Yeah, Vineet, I have to agree with that our Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, is an absolutely, refined politician, because he uses his body language, and his, if I may say so, puppies and juppies to take these relationships to the next level. But we need, as you rightly said, Donald Trump is a showman. I remember in 2004 when I was there, there was a show called The Apprentice in which Donald Trump was the hero. And he was known for his dialogue, which was all over the place and called, quote opens, "You are fired," quote close. So we need, that's the very transaction and the mercurial Donald Trump for us. And now coming to part two, Donald Trump's showmanship. 3 weeks ago at the Republic Convention, he talks about a movie called Con Air, in which Nicolas Cage stars in that movie, and there were a bunch of serious criminals transported from one part of America to the other in a transport plane, and their hands and legs were all shackled. And after 3 weeks, that's what Donald Trump does. He chooses this similar pattern, exactly on the lines of that, to, in a very unfortunate manner, to send 104 illegal immigrants back. Vineet, I've been in and out of America many times. In most flights, there are people who are being deported, and they're normally made to sit at the back. And as soon as the plane lands, the police of that country comes and escorts them out. Of course, there have never been 104 of them in one plane. But Vineet, he is a man full of theatrics, and he is even now catering to his constituency. Even if you listen to his press conferences in the last 4 or 5 days, ever since he's become the president, he's still in campaign mode. I mean, from Crooked Joe to the way this would not have happened, that would not have happened. So he's a showman, and he's living up to his voters, to the constituency that chose him. Now we need number two. Now look at the tariff. He uses tariff as a weapon. When I was growing up, I used to hear that you show the gun and you can do a lot more than actually firing the gun. So he simply uses tariffs to intimidate other countries, and he hasn't really thus far imposed all of them, because then he gets them on the table so that he can get them on a negotiating ground. And unfortunately, if there is a trade deficit, then he's hostile towards you. So he doesn't take that very kindly. And I think in this trip, I'm so happy that we have a career politician as a prime minister and a career diplomat, a very nimble and deft foreign minister, because they're probably the most competent guys, at least on this side of the world, to deal with Donald Trump, because he is still in kind of an election mode and he needs to be played out and heard. And I think there'll be a lot of pushes and pulls behind closed doors, because that's what Donald Trump is all about. And I'm not going to spend time on saying, because the people are distinguished before me have mentioned, what are the areas and the areas of discussion. But Vineet, on a note of levity, I feel that in the American election, especially now, I think the entire world should be allowed to vote, because he can single-handedly impact any part of the world of his choice. Him and his bromance with this gentleman called Elon Musk, the kind of power these tech czars wield, they can influence any part of the world. And one of the discussions I'm saying, Elon Musk is for the longest time get to India, but unfortunately, we're not getting a common ground with him on the batteries. So one thing that's going to be very important and looked into is the richest man in the world who has never won an election and has the ear of the Donald Trump, which is Elon Musk, and his meeting with our honorable Prime Minister, Vineet.
That's a good point. General Kochhar, in fact, Donald Trump's predecessor, way back, former President Teddy Roosevelt, put out a statement which is still colloquial and used in a lot of ways, is, speak softly but carry a big stick. When it comes to that big stick, we can perhaps create an analogy today, sir, that big stick is weaponry today. It's the deterrence that countries try to create, and in that creation, in that quest to create this deterrence, especially against our adversaries like China, how important is America to India? And of course, India is also a client to America and vice versa. But when you're selling weapons, when you're dealing with the military industrial complex, it brings about a whole new paradigm of relationship angles.
I think there's a very interesting perspective actually you've brought out, because in 2016, United States designated India as a major defense partner. And in 2018, we were elevated to strategic trade authorization tier 1 status, which allows India to receive a license-free access to a wide range of military and dual-use technologies regulated by the Department of Commerce. And thereafter, there has been this COMP-COSA and LIMIO, it's a logistic exchange memorandum and communication compatibility security agreement. So I'm just giving you the background that United States and India have traveled a long journey since 2016. And for China, because especially if we have to contain China or if we have to pose a deterrence, as you mentioned, to China, the Indian armed forces need to be equipped. So, where are the gaps today? And it's extremely important to understand the gaps which our security apparatus or armed forces are having today, and where America can come in. And especially, I feel this visit is going to be instrumental in discussing those areas where, in spite of agreements, in spite of meeting, especially during the Biden administration, the things have not moved. So I think with Trump, we can be sure that if we discuss something with him and there is an agreement on the way forward, the things will move faster. And especially, I would like to bring in the issue of the G404 and 414 engines, because these are critical to the Tejas Mark 1 aircraft. And today, if we see our own air chief making a statement that the HAL has given us 40 aircrafts in 40 years. So this is the United States has to step up now. And what is going to be the bargain from Trump's side? Because as we all understand, it is going to be a transactional meeting, because we may have to agree to certain things. And I believe Elon Musk has a meeting with Modi. So the two important agendas for the transaction are firstly Tesla, and the second is Harley Davidson, because these two firms are no longer functioning in India. So I think possibly with this budget also, which the finance minister has placed, the tariff on these components have been reduced. So it has already set a base for a positive interaction with Trump, because Modi can always tell him that we have considered the tariffs on these two things and we are willing to go the mile. So now what actually comes on the anvil is it's the most important thing. And as I told you, gaps, we have to have a stealth fighter, and we must get in the either F-35 or Su-57, because now the important tightrope walking is because the Russians are offering Su-57 with a facility to manufacture their aircraft in India, to set up a production base for this aircraft in India. So now a very conscious decision may have to be taken, and my opinion is we can go with both these aircrafts, Su-57 as well as F-35. Two squadrons each will be required, because the Air Force cannot wait for another 40 years. We have to look at our threat perception for the next 5 years. And that's what I feel, that with the Modi and Trump meeting, we should go ahead with the F-35 two squadrons. At the same time, we can engage with the Russians also for two squadrons of
Right, sir.
Su-57. So these are the very important areas I thought of highlighting in your program, and we can await for the outcome. Next 48 hours are going to be extremely crucial, Vineet.
All right, well, we've run out of time, but Ambassador Veera Sikri, before we go, you also want to understand, there is this infusion of these oligarchs into the American government now, and this is something that Bernie Sanders also pointed out. Is that going to impact our relationship with the United States in any way? It's just a fundamental educational question that I'm asking you for my own knowledge, perhaps, and the audience will also gain from it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're referring to Elon Musk and many others of the oligarchs, the very, very leading business community of America have now switched support to President Trump. I think the American system has always been like that. The oligarchs, the capitalists, the people who run big business, they've always played a very big role in American administration, in American life. And the private sector does rule everything that goes on in America. Of course, the role that Elon Musk is now playing is larger than life. It's huge. And we saw yesterday that, Elon Musk is there in the White House, standing right next to President Trump, who is seated at his own office desk, and he's talking about what he's doing with DOGE, DOG, Department of Government Efficiency. So I think this is also very much part of President Trump's election promises. As part of his promises that he made, and I agree that he's still very much in the campaign mode, that he is going to make American government very much more lean and mean and very, very efficient. And the way he has shut down the USAID and associated groups like the NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, is certainly going to, it has already had an effect on international programs all over the world, on which USAID was spending very liberally. And we've seen in our own region, we've seen President Trump talk about what is happening in the region of India and Bangladesh and what USAID were doing to destabilize these regions. And we've already seen earlier that President Trump spoke about the chaos in Bangladesh and the barbaric attacks on Christians and Hindus in Bangladesh. So President Trump is very clear in his mind on what is going on. He knows what is going on. He knows what he wants to stop. So I think what he is wanting to stop, and if it's going to help South Asia, I think India and USA are going to be on the same page. Certainly India and USA, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump are going to discuss regional issues. They are going to discuss South Asia. They are going to discuss Southeast Asia. This is going to be very important. So we are looking forward to the outcome of those discussions. But I think that the American, many people say that Elon Musk in the beginning is going to do a lot of this, and then later, once he's taken all his decisions on how he's going to trim American government and governance, then there'll be a different role. We know that Vivek Ramaswamy was supposed to be very much a part of this, but he has opted out of it, and now he's going to run for governorship, and he's preparing for that. But he's also going to meet our Prime Minister. So there's going to be a very good feedback from these very leading lights of the campaign. Vivek Ramaswamy and President Trump's, even Elon Musk played a very big role. He was the largest single contributor to President Trump's election campaign. That itself gives him this very crucial position. So wait and watch on these issues, but I do think the visit will be very successful and there'll be substantive and substantial outcomes.
All right, ma'am. Appreciate your response and appreciate everybody who joined in for this important debate. We take a short break now. Be right back.